Till 1:30?
Then people just start.
What time is it? I don't even know what time it is. I better have my chronometer. I do? Okay. Oh my goodness. This is perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Glenn. Everywhere you go in the Rotary world, you run into Glenn. He's a word he can't write. He can't spell. It's called ubiquitous. And he's very proud of that word. And he tells everybody he's ubiquitous. And they say, okay, take it easy. But anyway, John Yoder's the reason I'm here. John and I had breakfast. I think was it the Veterans or is it Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. We had a great conversation. He invited me over. So actually, this makes, since you guys are a long-standing club, as I said, you're actually a founding club for our club. I think we're 85 or something like that, 83 years old, and you guys are going to be 100. So that's pretty amazing. But John and I had a great conversation, and so this is actually Club 41 for me. If you're going to count Monday and Friday, I should get credit for coming to both. We'll see if anybody remembers what I said when I was at the other club, but the other meeting. But anyway, delighted to be here. As we see constantly, you can be from anywhere. You can go to any school and do anything. You can be from. Vous venez d'Afrique? J'ai oublié que vous parlez français. You can be from anywhere, and if you're a Rotarian, it's an instant connection. It really is. It's a remarkable connection. So I couldn't be prouder to be a Rotarian, and I love getting out and talking to everybody out in the field and seeing what they're all doing. Bruce is going to be president of the Hershey Club in another year, and he wanted to come down and see what you guys do, what your culture is, what your operations are. It's very important to know all that. So we're delighted to be here. I want to say a few things, and I want to also, I have a presentation, but it's not your typical DG presentation. It's much more of a opportunity for everybody to think and strategize as Rotarians when you look out at the world. I thought the invocation was great today because it said God without borders, right? We're talking about a world that is greatly hindered by all its borders, and yet that also gives us these amazing nations, but at the same time, it creates a lot of friction and a lot of problems. And Rotary cuts through all of that. That's one of our roles, is cutting through all that. So I want to quickly go through, oops, I don't need to do that. High tech, see if this works. Okay, I just want to talk about the relevance of Rotary to each of us, and I want to talk about the role of Rotary in the world. And I have some little predictions here as to what the world's going to look like in 2030. You guys already could probably come up with the same conclusion, even though this is the result of a very intricate international or intelligence estimate by the folks in Washington. They advised the president and the National Security Council on what our policy should be dealing with the world. And of course, we're seeing that played out every day now. So is Rotary relevant? The answer to that is a resounding yes. It's very relevant to each of us, to the club, to the community, to the nation, and to the world. It's a very relevant organization, becoming more relevant, I would say. In 1921, our friend Paul Harris here, and I'm going to talk about him in a minute, he decided, that was over 100 years ago, he decided that we should add one more object to Rotary. You all know the first object of Rotary is acquaintance for the benefit of service. That's what you're demonstrating right here, acquaintance for service. But the fourth object of Rotary is international understanding, goodwill, and peace. And he wrote that into the Rotary objects. So when you take the oath, you join a club, and Adam, I hope you will do that. I'm going to talk to you primarily today. Everybody else knows what I'm going to say. And your banker over here is such an honest guy. He admitted he was for Kansas City, I guess. That's pretty honest for a banker. But anyway, by adding that object to Rotary, that means we are, in fact, globally oriented. We're global citizens. And the projects we do, wherever they may be, and I heard you have a global project coming down the road, that's good. Or the community projects we do, all make a difference over time in the way we think, the way we act, and how we live. So, very relevant. And is there a role for Rotary in the world? Absolutely. More significant all the time. Positive peace, I think, is going to be our main focus once we get beyond polio. We're just about beyond polio. We've been doing that for 40 years. And I think we're going to get into positive peace and start to make a big difference. You heard Sparrow say he's on his way to Istanbul, so am I, next week, to have a global summit on peace, on positive peace, which is much more than just negative peace. It's much more than just cessation of hostilities. I mean, how many people here really seriously think Israel-Palestine is going to last very long as far as peace, or even possibly Ukraine? We've tried peace a million different ways, but we've never really gotten to the kind of peace that Rotary envisions, which is a positive peace, which is a opportunity to address all the needs of citizens and countries around the world. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So the answer is pretty relevant. It's, I mean, pretty much a yes, a big yes. It's relevant, and there's a major role for it. Here we are, member-centric civil organization, civil service organization, bottoms up. We want to just improve relations of people and make a change in the world, in the community, and in ourselves. That's what we're trying to do. So I'm going to just quickly breeze through these 5 categories in which I think it's relevant and important, and then talk a little bit about the future of the world. At the individual level, and Rotary is first and foremost about individuals who have a view of life in the world and then come together as they are here and sharing that like-minded perspective. So first and foremost, Rotarians have a personal set of values and guidance that they use. And we know what that is. We heard the 4-way test this morning. We have core values. We have a Rotary code of conduct. And we have the 4-point test that I just mentioned. So all those things are out there. If you were given an elevator speech, if somebody says, well, what's Rotary all about? You should be able to rattle through those things. Say, we use a 4-way test, we deal with relationship with others. We have core values. We have a series of objects we try to achieve all the time. So we can have acquaintance for the benefit of service, and we have international understanding. Okay, all that can be crammed into a nice 30-second speech. You should have that down. First and foremost, you have that down. Then you're ready to come to a Rotary meeting and sit down at the table. And I know one member here has private dining, but normally you'd be sitting. This must be the Club Diva or something. Is that what this is? Normally you sit there and you share your values and your understanding. That's the Paul Harris formula. Okay, Paul Harris, when he was a little boy, like 5 or 6 years old, was put on a train in upstate New York by his mother. And she said to the conductor, this is 1870, long before there were cars, there were trains. And she said to his mother said to the conductor, let him off in Bellows Falls, Vermont. Okay, so he's all alone on a train. Said goodbye to his family. And I think he pretty much knew it was over. It's a pretty dysfunctional family. The siblings went elsewhere. The parents had highfalutin ideas that were going to, be famous and rich and everything, and that never happened. So off he went, and you can imagine what's going through his mind at that time. Did not have the nourishment of a family and the sort of, sense of well-being. But anyway, his grandparents met him at the station, wonderful people, and they brought him up for the next roughly 10 years till they went away to college. And he grew up in a small village in Vermont, a very small village. The expression, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that's what Paul Harris experienced. He knew the locals, they knew him. He kind of ran wild, barefoot all summer. He had those roll-up pantaloons you wear. The reason they roll them up is because as you grow taller, you just roll them down a little bit, so you don't have to change them. You can wear the same pair of pants for years. He had the plaid shirt and the straw hat. And at night, after having interacted with the village, gone to the local swimming hole, and kind of had that sense of belonging, which is what Rotary offers, his grandmother would wash his feet and put him to bed. So he had muddy feet, washed the feet. So grew up, had a successful education, had a great sporting life, played sports in college, got a law degree, toured the country, and then settled down in Chicago as a young, lonely attorney. Okay, this is not some wealthy Chicago lawyer that founded Rotary. This is a young, insecure, depressed, gloomy person who founded Rotary. If you read the story of how he did all that, he was very forthcoming about this. Yeah, I was lonely. I'd go back to my apartment and I didn't have any friends, didn't know anybody. I go to the park on Sundays. And you can go to a very crowded area, train station, and not know anybody. You can feel very lonely, actually. And that's what he felt. So we got together with 3 other colleagues, and they decided they'd have meetings. They would come together and do that. And they would rotate. So that's why we rotate. That's where the word comes from. We go to your place next week. And when we go there, we expect to be, welcomed. And they, feel at home See what makes you tick. What do you have hanging on your walls? What's important to you? We want to understand you better. So, and we just had a chance to have a little rotation here. You guys rotated among yourselves by doing the happy dollars or the contribution you made. You told about something that was important to you, and then the rest of us learned what that was. And if we didn't do that, then we wouldn't have that opportunity for interaction. So it's very important to do. So keep that in mind always. Even if you don't move to different places, you got to rotate within the club. Sit at different chairs, even if you're at private dining, and talk to yourself if you can't talk to anybody else, and interact. That's what Rotary's all about. Okay, that's what it means to rotate. Most clubs these days stay in the same place, so they have to constantly they have to re-energize themselves and rethink of that all the time. It's very important to do. And you got to have some fun while you're doing it. You got to have some humor. I think Glenn's brilliant at doing that. People laugh him off most stages, but he's thick-skinned, so that's good. We need guys like that. You got to constantly do that. In other words, each one of you should really think you are president for a day of the club, and it's up to you to interact with everybody, make them feel good, talk to them, and that's an obligation you have. I know we have a table here full of past presidents, but that doesn't matter. Past presidents are merely recycled Rotarians, and so it's up to everybody to keep that dynamic going. It's friendship, it's fellowship, it's fulfillment with some fun in there. And what is fulfillment? Fulfillment is, gee, I'm looking forward to go to the meeting today, because at the meeting I'm going to learn about all the great stuff we're doing, the youth we interact with, the projects we're doing, the activities we have planned. I'm going to make fun of somebody sitting next to me, or I'm going to say something relevant or irrelevant. I'm just going to have a good time. That's why you come to the club, obviously. And when you leave here today, you should have a sense of fulfillment about what you've done. You should feel good about it. You got exposed to some special guests from the other side of the world, whose son goes to Penn State Harrisburg. What an amazing story that is. And you hear about other things. You hear about activities coming up, into students and so forth. And you say, wow, that was cool. I'm glad I went to the meeting. I feel better. I feel happier. I'm a more functional citizen as a result of that. That's fulfillment, okay? So all those things have to occur for you then to say, all right, we got a buzz going here. We're doing really well. Let's look outside and see what's cooking, all right? Are there any needs in the community we're not fulfilling that are necessary? And every club has that opportunity. As you drive here, as you drive home, as you go up and down the street, what's going on? I was amazed to learn recently that the York Club is now focusing its energy, and the York Club's they're a mega club, right? 300 members. They're focusing their energy on inner city York. A past president of that club who lived downtown would take his kids to school in the morning, and guess what? He'd stumble over getting to school. Homeless people in the streets. And they suddenly realized, well, we've been here a long time, and this has been going on. Let's look at this a little closer. We have an obligation to do that. We're meeting out at the country club, but what about downtown York? So that's what that club's doing. A few years ago in Hershey, and Hershey's perceived to be a pretty successful town, and the superintendent of schools belonged to our club, and she was saying, yeah, we keep feeding more and more kids breakfast now, under that program. And somebody said, so how does that work? Well, a high percentage of Hershey is below the poverty zone. Interesting statistic. And if those kids are being fed in school, what do they eat on weekends? Where's that food come from? So a leader of our community formed an organization called Cocoa Packs. It's food bank for kids. And our club goes periodically, actually very often, and we stuff backpacks with food. And the kids go to a place within the school and pick up their backpacks, or their parents do, and they have food all weekend. So it's, think about it. That was a need that went on for years. It didn't just start because we suddenly realized it. So that's out there, and everything we do, and you heard Dennis very nicely read the Paul Harris outline of contributions. That's what makes a difference. That's very important to do. So functioning individuals in a very functioning club, looking outside the community, and then looking globally, saying, what can we do? What are our areas of focus? Where can we make a difference? And that's what you guys are doing. So today, I just want you to put on your thinking hats, your strategy hats, and say, what kind of a world is this? And how are we doing? How are we making it better, and so forth? Because that's an interesting responsibility, which Rotary has gladly assumed over the years. Okay, so to the individual, I've gone through this. Basically, Get your elevator speech in order so you're ready to say, here's what we stand for, here's what we do as individuals. And then we belong to this super club, meets downtown, E-Town, and here's what our club does, X, Y, and Z. The numbers are up, what, 130, 128? That's amazing. That's great. New members come in all the time. Adam, you'd be crazy not to join a club like this because it's like whole cloth. You can make what you want out of it, you know. You can do very little, you can do a lot. There's a woman in the Monday Club, and I always forget her name. Is it Alyssa Roth? Is that her name? She was relatively quiet for a few years. Guess what she's doing now? She's grabbed the bull by the horns, and she's doing trafficking, human trafficking. So much so, you should listen to her presentation, so much so that now the zone, all of North America's, this part of the east of North America, said, we want you to go outside the district and talk to other districts about what you're doing. And she's going to be at our district conference, which somehow Glenn just glossed over, but April 4th to the 6th in Hershey, we're going to have a district conference. We're going to have 400 or 500 Rotarians from 4 different districts come. I know some people have signed up already. We have a special Saturday rate only for Saturday, April 5th. Please consider coming up to that. It costs a few bucks, but you're getting 3 excellent Hershey Lodge meals. You're going to hear an amazing session on world peace by peacekeepers that we've trained, Rotary's trained, and the past president of Rotary International is going to be there. Our zone director is going to be there. We have another Rotarian in our district who is a torture survivor as a teenager in Sudan. She's going to be talking about her experiences. We're going to have a house of friendship with dozens of tables and activities to interact with. Alyssa's going to have a table there on trafficking. We're going to have a table there on environmental issues and on peace. So come up for the day, walk around. We're going to have a super dinner with, we're going to recognize all the PDGs, guys on crutches like Dennis come wobbling in and we all applaud. And then about 20, 25 youth exchange students will be there. And then at the very end of the night, we're going to have dueling pianos as a competition to raise some money and have some fun. So think about that. I put these on your tables April 5th in Hershey. Okay. So individual club. The club is the format for which individuals working together can say, let's do this, let's do that. Let's have fulfillment, and then let's see what we can do in the world to make it a better place. And here's just some examples of what the community presents for needs. And you'll see in a few minutes when I put up the 8 pillars of statecraft, or of a successful society, these address those needs. So you're going to take our 7 areas of focus, and you're going to take the 8 areas of positive peace, and say to yourself, let's try this, let's try that. Okay? Goodness sakes, we need more presence of Rotary in the pursuit of having a decent nation. To the world, we started off in 1905, as you heard, with founding Rotary, and then in 1907 we had our first service project, which is to fix the urinals in downtown Chicago, and I think they still need repair. 1921 is when Paul Harris, it was the first international convention. It was in Edinburgh. That's when he said we need to add another object to our goals of Rotary, and that would be international understanding and peace. In 1930, we had our first humanitarian grant. In 1934, we started having institutes of international understanding. And this is very important. These are our predecessors of about 100 years. 1943, in London, Rotary sponsored a session out of which UNESCO came, the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. So UNESCO can be tied directly to a Rotary session. And then in 1945, in San Francisco, we had the Charter Conference for the United Nations. And for that, nations obviously sent delegations, but non-governmental organizations also sent delegations. Rotary sent 49 Rotarians to San Francisco. 49, that was the largest non-government delegation. And they participated. Many of them sitting with a seat around the table talking about what the world should look like and what the United Nations role should be. So that's a pretty remarkable role for Rotary. And it's still very relevant today. If we were to have another follow-on conference, if we ever get peace, like we need to have, and stability, if we were to have another conference to strengthen the United Nations and recognize its resolutions, the word would go out, we need Rotarians to attend the meeting. So I would come to this club and say, okay, I need a volunteer to come and go to DC or Geneva or Iceland and talk about world peace and how we can have a better world. So somebody here is going to go. So who's it going to be? Think about that only in the context of, not knowing minute details of policy, but just think in big terms. Are you ready to go and speak about the kind of world you'd like to see? So that should be, your strategic standard you keep as you think about what's going on in the world and the role of Rotarians. Then we got into scholarships, and we've been excelling in peace scholarships ever since. We have global grants. Our district right now has a student in the Netherlands. She's studying peace. On Saturday, tomorrow, we interview 2 more candidates to go out next year and do something similar somewhere around the world. And so each year our district does that, in addition to all the other grants we do and all the other activities and our training teams we send out. We all know the story of polio. At least I hope you all know the story of polio. And many of you, some of the relatively old timers here, were around when polio hit our country in the 50s. It was as bad as COVID. It was scary. It was scarier than COVID, particularly for young kids, because it was the iron lung, it was paralysis, and it was death. And Rotary said in the 1970s, let's go to the Philippines and fight polio. And that's what happened. And it was very successful. It wasn't easy, but then polio continued to exist elsewhere. So then leaders of the Rotary back then went to leaders of the United Nations, sat down and said, we would like to take our polio campaign to the whole world. And the United Nations said, yeah, great idea. We love your energy, but it's going to take an army to do what you're talking about doing. So what did Rotary say? He said, we have an army. We have 1 million Rotarians. And that is one of the more amazing historic conversations that's taken place, because we took it on. It was 40 years ago. $2 billion later, hundreds of thousands of administering of antidotes later, we just about got it beat. Can you imagine that, a nonprofit organization from small town America like you guys taking on a disease like that was crippling the world? It's worked. We did it. It's an amazing story. So that's going to just about wind up now. It's left in a couple countries and only a few cases. And we're going to have that beat. Then we're going to look around and say, what's the next great thing we could do to make a difference in the world? So polio is a wonderful story. We still have Rotary representatives, ambassadors, they're called, to the United Nations. Our president, Stephanie Urchik, who, by the way, is from Pennsylvania, only the 2nd female president of Rotary International. If you go west here on Route 30 for 3 hours, you'll come to a little town. What's the name of the town she's from? It's just south of Pittsburgh. Small club, president of Rotary International. She's going to be chairing this conference that, what? No, I can't think of it. Begins with a B, I think. But anyway, Sparrow and I are going to go to this conference. She's chairing that conference. And we invited UN leaders and world leaders to attend that in Istanbul next week. She is very strong on peace, and she's very strong on members. She looks like, by the way, she's a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. You probably saw from the logo that her theme looks a little bit like the Pittsburgh Steelers on the pin. I gave you on the pin. And so she's very bottom line. She's like a steel worker. She said, hey, get more members. Members bring money. Members bring service projects. So just go get more members. Okay, that's what we want to do. And to get more members, we don't go out and say to people, come join us. We demonstrate what we are, who we are, and they come to us. Okay, they come to us and say, we'd like to join your club. It's not we're trying to persuade somebody to do that. I mean, obviously it's win-win. It's in their interest, but primarily they should want to join. I mean, it should be so logical. So here we are, the peace centers, and we're going to be attending the one in Istanbul. We're going to open another peace center. The University of Bahçeşehir in downtown Istanbul is going to be the 7th Peace University. We're opening that next week. So now we have about 1,800 peace scholars touring around. We're going to have 2 at our conference in Hershey, and they are trying to make a difference in the world at working for the government and for other organizations. 7 areas of focus. You all know what those are? Do you know the 7 areas of focus? Can you just say what they are? Well, let me give you a quick way to remember this forever. So when you're in the elevator and somebody says, oh, so what's Rotary? You tell them. They say, well, what does Rotary do? So you can tell them, okay? You've all held a baby or you've been a baby, right? Everyone here been a baby? I spoke at one club and someone said they were never a baby. Glenn, was that you? No, it was a different club. Somebody said, no, they were never a baby. But think about a baby, either holding a baby or being a baby. What do you want for that baby? First and foremost, you have mother-infant successful birth, right? So we're for that. That's number 1. What's the next thing you want for that kid? You want the kid to be able to drink water and breathe air. Sound fair? Good idea. So we're for water. What's the third thing you want for the baby? Sitting there home, nursing it. You want to have a disease-free environment. That's what we're doing with polio. By the way, it's polio plus. It's not just polio. The plus is a lot of other diseases too. And working with the Gates Foundation and others, we're going to knock all that out. So the baby's going to have a good environment in which to grow up. What's the fourth thing you want for the kid? You want the kid to have some kind of education, some kind of basic literacy, of course. We're 100% for that. We always have been. We're very strong on education. Not just these scholars, but at all levels. One of the best things we do is relate to Students of the Month, 4-way test, exchange students, RILA, all those things we do, and we do it very well. And we don't begin to get the credit we should get for all the things we do. But it's great that you guys can sit there and have dinner. You can have a student come in and tell you what he or she does. And it's important for them to be able to have this forum. It really is. They appreciate that. All right, so those are 4 things. What's the 5th thing you want the kid to have? Some form of economic viability, right? So we need some community economic development. And we've been doing that pretty well for years, all around the world. The secret formula is our club to their club, or their club to our club. It's not just local, but and it works both ways. All these things we do work both ways. And sometimes it's a disaster relief. A lot of times it's one of the 7 areas of focus. But we always do that, and it's Rotarian to Rotarian, so we bypass the government. So it's much more effective that way. So that's the 5th thing. The 6th thing is the environment. A couple of presidents ago, we said, let's take a look at the environment and contribute to have a better world overall with less carbon, less all those things. And so that's number 6. And then the final goal is international peace and understanding, which is now evolving into what we call positive peace. So those are the 7 areas of focus of Rotary. Should be easy to remember. Just picture the baby. What's the baby need? What's the baby want? Okay? You'll always remember that. So now we have a great formula. We have great people. This is on positive peace, which is the focus, conflict resolution and conflict and peace. Now I said conflict resolution, which is important to distinguish from conflict management. And most nations are in the business of conflict management. Sadly to say, they don't have much choice in that. What we see right now going on in Washington, what we have seen is opportunity to manage these conflicts, to keep them from flaring up and killing everybody all the time, at least establishing parameters. But to actually resolve is another whole step. And that's where Rotary comes in and tries to create this sort of understanding necessary, the education, the health, all those other factors behind that. So each of you can become a peace builder. If you go to positivepeace.academy/Rotary, it's a free, easy course to take, under 2 hours, and then you can become a positive peace advocate. You can talk positive peace. You can appreciate it's the attitudes, the institutions, the structures we exist in that need to have better understanding and better relationships. It's that simple. So I would urge you all to take that course. Here we are, pillars of positive peace. Well-functioning governments. Most nations of the world don't meet this first test. including ours. We do not have a well-functioning government. We have an okay functioning one, but it could be better. A sound business environment, low levels of corruption, high levels of human capital, free flow of information, good relations with neighbors, equitable distribution of resources, and acceptance of the rights of others. That comes to us from the International Institute of Peace, which is a nonprofit that's been studying nations for years, and they've established a global peace index for each country around the world to say how well they're doing that. The countries that are higher up the list don't go to war. They have very little internal or domestic conflict or international conflict, and they're doing pretty good for their people. Number one on the list, Iceland. So if you want to go to a safest place in the world and have a nice life, go move to Iceland. At the far end are some other countries that have internal wars going on, that have a lot of problems with many of these areas. Okay, so, and that's an assessment. It's just a way of looking at it, and they've established a global peace index. So as we Rotarians look at nations and as projects around the world, we can say, let's focus on some of these problems that may pertain to those countries. And it might make a difference, including our own country, very much our own country. Our club does what, Bruce, what do we have, 34 projects we do, domestic or locally in our community? And, most clubs have a lot of activities they do because it starts at home. Okay, but as a strategist, say 7 areas of focus, 8 areas that might have needs. Let's think about that. I have no idea what your global grant is, but it's going to touch on one of these 7 areas, and you may also say, let's find an area where we want to do it. Global trends. Okay, I'm going to finish up here. What the world looks like in 2030. These are serious times, a critical juncture for us. We have a number of dynamics that are occurring. One of which is, and all this can be found, by the way, in these websites. John has a copy of this if you want to say, hey, what the heck is he talking about? This is an actual DNI up there, stands for Director of National Intelligence. The lady just confirmed yesterday. And the NIC stands for National Intelligence Community. So all 18 intelligence agencies get together and predict what the world's going to look like. So this is not something that I've just arrived at myself. There is some improvement for individuals, but real problems globally. The United Nations doesn't have the respect that it had. Its resolutions, it has fewer resolutions than it had before, and they're often being vetoed. A world counts up there. If you look at that website, you'll see that right now we're a little over 8 billion, and we're gaining 200,000 residents a day in the world. That's how many are being born. That's the net gain, which means we're going to go to 9 billion, to 10 billion, and we're going to at least get to 11 billion before we level this off. That is a lot of people, a lot of additional people, and of those 200,000 a day, a lot are being born in the big cities around the world that already don't have the infrastructure to take care of what they have there now. We saw this act out in our country when we were busing immigrants up to big cities. The cities that we don't have any room or resources. So you can imagine what it's like elsewhere. These are challenges all nations have. So displacement is going to occur, migrations will occur, climate change is causing a lot of people to be homeless or to have to move. Food and water, 1 in 4 people globally do not have regular access to safe drinking water. 1 billion people living in 42 countries face food deficiency. Okay, these are actual numbers. So there are some trends that are really obviously very serious. If nations can't solve them, if the United Nations can't really help it, then it's falling a lot to organizations such as Rotary. Okay, so not the most cheery picture in the world, but there is lots of good news. And I don't know if you saw me the other day. I was on television on ABC 27. I did a 3-minute thing on positive peace. You can call that up. It's on our website. But at the very end, I concluded when they said, well, so are you guys really going to make a difference? I said, yeah, if everybody would just join Rotary, if we had 8 billion Rotarians in the world, then we would be at that point. We would have that common understanding, the personal orientation, the club presence of fulfillment, the community relations, the national and the global. So there's lots of good news out there. I don't want to end on a bad note at all. I feel great about it. This peace conference is going to be exciting, and ultimately, you have to appreciate that everything you do as an individual does make a difference. You can't say, I don't care, or it's not going to make a difference, because it will. It really does. One time I was at an event with Governor Ridge, had become Secretary of Homeland Security, and he was saying something about Homeland Security and the need for everybody to appreciate that we have to be caring, vigilant, and we have to be concerned about anything that happens anywhere. And some woman at a table said, well, it's not going to affect me. He went down off the podium. He said, lady, it does affect you. What you say and do does make a difference. You have to appreciate that. If you don't, the world is going to just continue to get worse. So I would encourage everybody, stay engaged. It's easy and fun to do. Follow some of these sites I gave you and be true Rotarians, which is what we are. And people are just going to keep coming to us. I mean, Adam's probably going to join today after you heard what I said. But no, always keep Paul Harris in mind. Amazing guy. And no matter how confused or unhappy you are with the scenario, go back to what Paul, basic formula said was two Rotarians sharing bread in friendship and in fellowship. And that'll make a difference. Okay, Glenn's going to have something else to say. Okay, thank you.
Was this your phone buzzing the whole time?
Yeah, I don't know what that's okay. Did it
So, imagine if Paul Harris wasn't born. Think about that. That would be a good essay.
Yes, that would be a good one.
But I haven't said this to Deb yet, but I can't imagine being so far away from your son. That must be hard. I know you can probably communicate every day on text and WhatsApp, whatever, but something happens. You're halfway across the country. You have Deb's phone number. If he needs any help, you just call us and we'll figure something out. But seriously, we'll help whatever you need help with. I mean, if he goes to jail, we'll get him out. Just kidding. But if he needs help with anything, just let us know. We're right here, 10 minutes down the road.
What about finals?
Finals, we're not. No studying help and no girlfriend help.
He's studying architecture.
Oh, then yes.
I'm an architect.
Then there you go. But seriously, I mean, I have a nephew that's in Europe right now, and my sister's going nuts because she says to him, text me every night. Of course he doesn't. So she thinks he's dead, you know, and she's got to text him, and he's like, all right, I'm fine, you know, like, but it's important for your parents to know you're okay this far away. So good luck with school. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, Paul.
You bet. Hey.